Welcome, IT changemakers, to the DEX Show with Tim Flower and Tom McGraw. Let's get into it.
Hello, changemakers. Welcome back to the DEX Show. I'm flying solo today. It's Tom McGraw, and I've got an interesting mission to fly, everybody, because we've had repeat guests on the DEX Show before, and we're delighted today to welcome back for the second time Charlene Li. She's a business author, speaker, analyst, and thought leader, known for her work on digital transformation, the future of work, and what we want to talk to her about today, AI strategy. Welcome back to the show, Charlene. How are you?
Good, I'm happy to be here.
And what I was going to say, what I was going to qualify it, Charlene, is that while we have had repeat guests, not so many, it always means a great deal when we want somebody back on. Um, we've never done it quite like this. So the first time you're on the show, Tim was flying solo, and Tim did the interview. Now it's me. So although you're the second time guest, I've never actually met you before. So it's almost like a completely new guest for me, at least.
Well, this is gonna be interesting then. But you know the other episodes, so you know what I said.
I'm just going to ask you exactly the same questions. No, I'm not. I'm not. Actually, we actually, you're part of a sort of special series of shows where we're really delving into AI transformation, and particularly because sponsor of the show, NextThink, is just released its AI Drive, which gives IT teams a kind of unprecedented real visibility into AI usage of their organization. So many things to talk about in and around that. But first of all, so it's been about a year since you came on the show with Tim, and for people who were able to listen, how have you been? What have you been up to lately? How's the last year been?
It's been good. We've been my co-author, Katja Welsh, and I have been putting the finishing touches on our book, a long-awaited book called Winning with AI. And I've been working with a lot of people with speaking and workshops and advisory to just hear what they're doing and helping them create an AI roadmap that creates value. So it's been an interesting year.
Very
Just
cool.
lots of changes happening.
Lots of changes, right? I mean, it's fair to say. It's fair to say that AI is changing all of our working lives and our lives. And I was interested to ask, how has your own regular use of AI evolved over the last 12 months?
One of the things I've done is created a lot of custom GPTs. They're sometimes in GPT, they're projects in Claude, they're gems in Google. They all have the pros and cons. And I have everything from obviously one that's helping me write the book, has all my interviews and past writings. So it kind of knows all of my content. It's sort of my second brain. But I also have one for adventure travel. So I've given it my past itineraries so it understands what I like. I have one that helps me cook, another one that helps me with gardening, nutrition, uh, bookkeeping, because I can't stand bookkeeping. Like, how do I do this versus that? And I think it's just very helpful to have sort of these customized versions of whatever it is that I do on a routine basis. I've also been doing some vibe coding along the way just to experiment, dip my fingers in it. I don't know any of the technology. It is fantastic, but it definitely helps if you know some coding and knows, like, what does it mean to commit to a GitHub? I still don't quite understand what that is, but I know it's something that you have to do. So it's one of those things that I'm experimenting with.
Very cool selection. Of all of those things, what would you find it hardest to live without, do you think?
Oh, definitely all of my custom GPTs.
Yeah.
Because I rely on them. My bookkeeping one in particular, because when I have an issue, going and using the traditional, Google searches just doesn't work because it doesn't understand me, and sometimes I'm asking the same question again or a different variation on it, and it has that memory, so it understands my situation and my circumstances. So that has been a lifesaver.
Last question on this front, Charlene. Are there any ways in which you're using these different um, custom what do you call them? Custom what?
Custom GPTs.
Custom
So
GPTs. Are there any ways that you're using these custom GPTs in such a way as to mitigate some kind of side effect they might have on your creativity or your imagination? Because these are all quite imaginative and creative. Well, many of them, not the bookkeeping, but many of them are quite imaginative and creative areas to use them in. And are there ways you need to moderate or navigate it, which bring the best out of you and make sure the technology doesn't kind of overwhelm what you do? What's your approach to that?
Well, again, people ask me all the time, is like, does it help you or hurt you, especially for things like my creative writing? And one of the things I do is I don't use it to just write. I use it to help me brainstorm. For it actually adds to my creativity because it's kind of like having another version of myself to brainstorm with. And there aren't very many people who understand the context of things. I have to explain to them. They don't quite get it. This thing just knows everything about me. And frankly, it remembers more of the stuff that I've written than I have in the past. So it'll bring up things that I've said or done and talked about, make connections with things that I may not have remembered. So I do think of it as a second brain that I can query. And the way I use any of these chatbots is when I put in a query at the end, I ask, before you start, ask me any clarifying questions
Mm.
because it turns it from an answer machine into a conversation. And that creativity and that expansiveness comes from the conversation that I have with it.
Oh, that's a cool prompt. I'd never heard that. I like that a lot. It is amazing, right? Like, uh, these applications, they know us as well as anybody could ever know us, right? Right? It's
But
astonishing that I mean, and do you have any misgivings about that level of transparency and intimacy?
I do. I'll give you a little exercise. Someone sent me a little thing that says, ask, especially use the one that you use the most. So I tend to use ChatGPT because it's sort of all around decent. Not the best at everything, but it's all around decent. So it's my sort of default. And I asked it, tell me everything you know about me,
Mhm.
which is an interesting exercise, anyways. And then the second prompt is go deeper. And the third prompt is do a full cycle analysis of me.
Wow.
And then the fourth prompt is write a letter to my soul.
Oh my goodness. What are you up to?
It was, I'm like, I was so curious, like, what's it going to say? And it was incredibly moving. I mean, these things are built to do that. I mean, if it's going to write to your soul, it's going to speak, it understands what moves you. And again, it helps if you do it across multiple domains of your life. And I'm not to say that it knows everything about me, but it's kind of like when you go see a fortune teller or you get your palm read, it's kind of an interesting exercise. You don't take it too seriously, you take it with a grain of salt, but it was incredibly moving. And I said this to some friends and they go, this brought me to tears.
Mm.
So I look at it again with a big grain of salt. It doesn't know anything. It doesn't truly know me, right? It has a lot of information for me about me. It can extrapolate a lot of understanding and pull together things in a very interesting way. And some parts of it truly resonated with me. I'm like, how did it figure that out? So
Mhm.
somehow it did it, just again with those prompts. It was
How
set up
far
in the
are
right
we?
way.
I keep saying, one more question in this direction there, so one more, just one more, something. Um, how, uh, how how far are we from the first, AI-centric religion? I know that sounds like a left field question, but I mean, people, what did you just cite there? You cited people going to mystics, people going to people, like, effectively little religious pilgrimages, right? Like, and then you're getting a resonance and a sense of comprehension, which is both self-comprehension, which is mysterious, moving, meaningful. Like, how are people going to react to that on at scale? Some people are going to go very, very far with that connection.
Right. Well, I want to draw a difference between religion, which is an organized or a place with beliefs and rituals and traditions, sacraments. That's a religion. There's a practice to it. There's a ritual to it, and spirituality, which is diving deeper into this whole mystical world. And I don't know if you want to call it spirituality, but I do believe AI is going to help us understand ourselves better in the world of knowledge where AI can know everything, the area where it doesn't really know is us. Like what's inside of this head? How do people think? And if it can help us understand each other better and help us smooth the communications that we have, Just look at within organizations, IT communicating with HR, two groups that really need to work together very closely when it comes to transformation. They speak completely different languages. Or a startup and a VC speak to completely different languages with common goals, but they have to do some sort of subtle translation. Or let's just take even our relationships. I have said so many times in my relationships, with friendships, with my partners, I say something, I ask them to repeat it, and it comes back as something completely different. I'm like, what am I doing that they can't understand me? So I think that AI can help us understand ourselves and each other better. And that is an opportunity, I think, to be able to use these tools to help us understand what is it that I don't understand about myself so that I can be better at whatever it is that I want to accomplish.
Well, I think this has been an amazing way to lay the foundations of the rest of the conversation, because I think we've got to the heart of some of the more extreme and interesting use cases and potentialities of this technology. And now we have to imagine what that means for our workplaces and for our professional lives and for our careers. But specifically the first of those, specifically for the workplace, and something you've written about extensively is the concept of AI leadership. And you touched upon it with Tim in your last appearance, but maybe just recap to begin with what the core principles, in your view, of good AI leadership looks like in this era.
Well, I think good AI leadership starts with just good leadership. And one of the things that's interesting about leadership is that it becomes ultimately incredibly important when things are uncertain, when they're unpredictable. Because if things are not changing, it's sort of just maintaining the status quo. That's what managers are really good at. But when change is happening and change is required, that's when you need leadership. And leaders, what they do really well is they create structure. They create a purpose and a why, an underlying why. Why do we have to go do this change? We don't want to. It's hard, and they create the strategy, the roadmap, and they also create accountability. And they're the ones who establish credibility in a relationship so that people will trust them. And I have always believed that with leadership, classic leadership has always been a relationship between people who aspire to create change and the people who are inspired to follow them. And that has been the truth for a millennia. So nothing changes around that. Now,
Oh, yeah, just,
the yeah, and the thing when it comes to AI leadership is that that has to come forward even more, and people forget that. And this is a moment where I think people are not standing in leadership. They see that they know that AI is important. They may or may not be doing it. They're not AI fluent for the most part, and without that fluency, it's very difficult to lead a change. They're not showing up as leaders. They're not saying, "This is the direction we need to go in. Let's all go in that direction, and how can I support you through this change?" So, again, I think great AI leadership starts with a mandate that says, "This is why we have to change." We see some CEOs now from places like Shopify, from Amazon. It's mostly technology companies because they're kind of more on it. But even like the CEO of Walmart has said, this is the future of what we're going to do. And what you see Walmart doing is rolling it out to all of their associates in stores and giving them access to very powerful AI tools in the existing applications that they use. So this is something that, again, there's leadership happening, but also it's not just enough to talk about it, you actually have to follow up with the actions.
so interesting. And just on that, I just saw an interesting post just yesterday. Is who should be leading AI transformation in an organization? Is it the CIO, the CEO, even throughout the CMO, which I even see where it's all completely preposterous, right? Um, I don't imagine you're going to name one, but what are your thoughts on that question of who in the existing structures could be taking the lead here?
It's the person who can understand the technology and how it works, and they don't have to be a technologist, and the person who understands your business strategy. Because in the end, AI has to be in service of your strategy. It is not about technology. It is about how it can be used as a strategic initiative. So at Moderna, the pharmaceutical company that does mRNA COVID vaccines, for example, AI lives with the CHRO, HR. In fact, they took their technical team and put it under the HR team, reporting to the CHRO because they realized that this transformation was going to be human led. It is about transforming the people who are going to use the technology. So the people come first and the technology comes second. The technology is in service of the people who will execute a strategy. So that is it. That's a big outlier. I would say that is not the norm. A lot of people by default give it to the IT. And I would say, really think about this and say, is your IT leader, the person who's going to be driving this, do they understand your business strategy? Are they focused on executing and supporting business? Or are they focused on primarily technology and procurement? And that's not going to work. AI would die a very slow and painful death if you give it to a person who just doesn't connect the technology to the business strategy. So I
Let's
think the
take that.
combination.
Let's take that as an incentive for our listeners who are in IT and IT leadership, who are being given these responsibilities, to take responsibility for that dimension, right? Like, because a lot of it, and so that become what you just said becomes an incentive for IT. If it's going to be their responsibility in an organization, A, it's a huge responsibility, and B, it might require a reorientation of their perspective, would you say, right? How would you turn that advice around to IT leaders who are being asked to affect this change?
They should be constantly asking this one question: what is our business strategy? And how can AI support it? What are the biggest challenges we have in our business strategy? The biggest problems, the biggest opportunities, and how can AI address them? We typically have three, let's say, typical business objectives that we have. It's hard to keep track more than three. And any use case, and I like to say, use cases are not a strategy. So when you have a whole long list of AI use cases, that's not a strategy. A strategy is, these are our business objectives. These are our top three. This is how AI is going to support that. And you can talk about that until the cows come home. Until so everybody goes, so what's our AI strategy going to be? Well, we're using AI to support these three business strategies, which we all know and are supportive of. We all agree on what that is. You don't have to rethink that. And this is why we're doing it. Now, this is what we're doing. Here's our roadmap of what we're going to do. And this is how we're going to actually implement it. These are the supports. These are the training. The training we should definitely come and talk about in a second. Uh, and this is the change we're going to have. And it's not necessarily going to be impossible, but it is going to be change. And we need to be prepared for this. Again, that's leadership, it's strategy, it's about having a concerted focus. And focus says you have to choose what you will do and what you won't do. And right now, there's not a lot of choices being made. It's just a lot of people trying a lot of different things. I like what your sponsor does. It's looking at how AI is actually being used in the organization because that can give you information about where the value is being found. And if you're in endless pilot purgatory, that's not a good sign. It's an indicator that you do not have a strategy of how to use AI. And so I say stop doing the pilots, really focus on doing the top strategic AI initiatives that are going to support your strategy and put all your eggs in those baskets because you're not going to do feasibility studies, you're not going to do pilots. You're going to say, this is really important to us. We're going to invest. We're going to figure out the technology. We're going to connect this to outcomes for our customers and impact every single quarter. And that's what a coherent strategy and roadmap looks like when it comes to AI.
And I mean, if IT leaders can get that kind of level of visibility into how AI and IT are actually being used across their organizations, what do you think would surprise the board or management or the C-suite most about what it would tell them?
Oh, that there's so much happening. We call it shadow AI, sort of like shadow IT. Anybody with a browser can use it. They don't need the permission of IT. They don't need anyone's permission to go and start using these things. And I think they would be surprised by how much value is actually being created. People say to me, like, oh, I see a level of efficiency here and there, but is there true value being created?
Mhm.
Go and look at how people actually are using this. They wouldn't be using it if it wasn't creating value. So value is absolutely being created. You don't know exactly how. How I can tell is when they're given access to these tools. If you try to take it away from them, they go, "With my cold dead fingers on it, will you take it away?" So, like, no, I need this to do my job. There's value there, but I don't know if you can measure it in specific ROI. Which is why I think ROI is the worst measure you could try to be looking at. It's the wrong question. What's the ROI of AI? It's kinda like saying, "So what can AI do?" It can do so many things, but is it creating value that matters to you? So ask instead of, "What can AI do?" Ask, "What can AI do for us to help us achieve our biggest strategic objectives?"
And what kind of more meaningful metrics or user patterns should we be looking for in place of something as reductive as ROI?
Well,
What would
again,
be-
you already have business metrics. You have objectives and metrics associated with that. That tells you whether you're moving towards your objectives better, faster, cheaper, and I would add another metric, which is safer. And so we talk about safety, security, privacy all the time when it comes to AI. It could potentially help you do those because it can highlight the things that may be going wrong. Again, it's a security risk too, but it can also tell you, hey, this thing may not be aligned because it can give it very clear objectives. This is our objectives. This is our strategic objective. Highlight anything that doesn't help us get to that point. Highlight anything that could be standing in the way or could be jeopardizing it. So again, AI is very objective driven. And if you tell it, this is our objective, this is our strategic objective, how do we get there? How do we use AI to help us get there? So I kind of think it's meta that you use AI to figure out how to use AI. So may as well use the tools available to you.
Kind of like macro prompting in a way. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. And what about the question of like productivity metrics and specifically, and maybe a difference between the qualitative and the quantitative, right? Which is something that I feel is when you talk about that employee-led AI transformation, you know, that for me can be reduced to that contrast between qualitative and quantitative. You know, we all know that AI could reel off a library worth of pretty bad books for us in with a series of prompts, but that's not what we're after, is it? We're after work which cuts through, which retains personality and originality. And is that an area where you feel the employee has to be in the driver's seat most importantly, most significantly?
Well, there's a disconnect because employees know what the problems are with their job. Like these are the bottlenecks, these are the things that are pain and to do. And but there's a disconnect between them knowing what the problem is and how to use AI to solve it. So again, I think employees are incredibly smart. People who generally are smart, they will not do things that are not productive for them. Okay, this does not include procrastination, so that's something completely different. But this is again about us understanding that if something's going to help us, if you're given a tool to help us do our jobs better, we're going to use it. And so I can tell you like, "Oh, I can do this a lot better. The results are better. Um, I don't have to I can be more creative and come up with better solutions." But you give them the tool and they also have to give them the training. And the training comes in two flavors. There's sort of top down, centralized, very organized. It's great for understanding what AI does, and it's great for responsible and ethical use of AI. But when it comes to that additional level of fluency, where you can apply AI to your job and to your work, that requires much more of a decentralized approach. It's about peer learning and support. It's about cross fertilization across departments. Like, we learned this could apply to you too as well. And then the fourth area of fluency is, can you use and talk about how to share this? Again, that sharing, the teaching of it, the collaboration that happens. Is that fluency there to be able to talk about and share and learn collectively too as well? So those are types of individual fluency, but also organizational fluency with AI that's really important to develop. And I'll put a line in the sand here. I believe that organizations should be focused on getting their AI, getting their most important workforce, especially the knowledge based workforce, everyone fluent with AI in the next 6 months.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
There's no excuse. We know this is the future. So invest the money, the time, and it's both to get people to be fluent. Get the technology in place where everybody can get access to these powerful models. You can do it at fairly low costs. If you go and get an enterprise license, use again some of the managed services like Amazon Bedrock to be able to get access to this. It's fairly turnkey and can be a lot less expensive. And frankly, it brings that shadow AI into the light so that you can truly talk about it and advance the use of AI in your organization.
Because there are some risks with shadow AI as well, right? It's not just to this, there is a maybe you could frame it as a duty of care on an organizational level, maybe a duty of self protection and security. There needs to be that transparency, right?
Absolutely. I feel like people should declare AI amnesty. Just
Mhm.
like, okay, if you are using it, we forgive you, but you have to come forward. And here's the time frame, right? And we'll work
That
right away.
was my prompts, Charlene, into the.
Yes.
So I have to submit them to HR. Don't make me do it. Don't make me do it.
No, exactly. It's just like, again, that's the only way you can bring all the people out from the edges, and is you have to give them amnesty. And and so they won't get in trouble. 'Cause I'm not gonna talk about every fight because 'cause I've been doing this rogue. Okay, we know this has been happening. We have the data. We already know that you're using this, so just come forward, do this in the appropriate way, and say, "Look, we may have to shut it down because it has these risks, or we can do it in this way," but it's about having this really thoughtful conversation
Since we're talking
about
about AI
how do we
religions earlier, Charlene, maybe we should call it AI absolution, maybe, as
Yes.
the right way to frame it. So where have you seen like real world organizations supporting this process of transformation in imaginative, effective ways? And I guess what advice would you give to leaders looking to support their employees with different temperaments or attitudes towards the extreme novelty and power of this technology?
Yeah, I we worked with this and interviewed this company that's a very large call center, and they implemented AI and they saw huge productivity gains, but it wasn't about replacing people. It was really about taking the bottom 25%, for example, and bringing them up to the level of their top performers. And it was really focused on helping people do their best work. And so there were productivity gains because of it. And so they can absolutely anticipate that their numbers will go down over time. But they were saying, look, we're just going to manage that through attrition. And we know that some jobs have changed. We know that jobs are going to change. Some jobs are just going to go away. Somebody gave me the example of reviewing checks. Like, somebody actually used to look at checks and key them into a system. And now with AI and computer vision, those jobs are just going to go away. There's no way of just it's saying that it's not going to be there. So you need a small number of people to look at the exceptions. And this is the reality, and we need to prepare ourselves as an organization for that. And again, this has been the case for decades now with technology coming in. This is not new and unique to AI. And so having the responsibility to take care of your people, I think, is a really important leadership trait here. To be able to say, change is coming. We'll do our best to upskill you, to reskill you. But overall, there may be some jobs that just simply aren't going to be here. So we can't guarantee your job. We can't guarantee your role is going to be here, but we can do our best to prepare you for this new future because you understand our organization. You're a valuable worker because you've been coming here and you know us, we know you. To the extent possible, we'd love to keep you.
Very cool.
And I think it's irresponsible of companies to give 2-week notices. It's like saying you just don't have your act together. Versus saying, we can see this change happening. We're going to prepare for it. There's a long runway. These are the ways we can do this.
Mm, mm. Um, I became interested in recently. We actually had someone on the show who was talking about a study about how they'd showed that excessive use or use of AI can sometimes have detrimental effects on creativity. And and I could imagine this being true in some circumstances, right? Um, could you imagine a future where there's mitigation of the use of AI or control of the use of AI within organizations where they're looking at specific tasks and they're maybe providing prompts above the AI app saying, look, maybe step away, maybe carve out some more autonomy in this process. Um, Similarly, with you see stories, Charlene, about AI addiction, AI overuse, unhealthy attachments to it. These are all, there's going to be so many known unknowns that come about from a new powerful technology such as this that could have implications for HR departments, for leaderships and
Right.
organization. What are your thoughts in this direction?
Well, again, this is where I think education helps tremendously because there was just an article in the New York Times talking about how somebody became very delusional about their ability to do math because AI is kind of like telling you, yeah, you're a math genius. And then when they actually put the formulas and everything into another AI, it said, oh no, this is bunk. Like, he goes, "Why didn't I think to do that? Like, how did I, like, get sucked into this?" And again, one of the best practices is critical thinking. We cannot let go of critical thinking because AI is just gonna tell us exactly what it is that we want to hear. It's designed to do that for better or for worse. Now, we can talk about designing AI so that the objectives are not just to answer the things that you want, but to also look at a body of knowledge that's considered, quote, right, whatever that means. Again, if we can't even agree on what is right because there are multiple versions of that, it's very hard for AI to do that. So I go back to an organization defining what does right look like. And I'll give you an example of fairness. We talk about bias being built into AI. There is bias in everything that we do because we are human and AI was built by humans. We come and show up with our biases based on our experiences. They're not good and bad necessarily, but there are biases. And so understanding what fairness means to an organization, because there is no universal definition of fairness. What does fairness mean? What does unbiased mean? And then building that into your AI, into the way that it delivers results is one way to mitigate those inadvertent points that you don't want to have happening. So I do believe that teaching people about critical thinking, how to use AI, understand that it can hallucinate, understand that you can fall into these traps, that it's just going to give you the answer. So you have to ask it and say, take the other perspective, challenge me on these ideas, use a different engine to check the results of another engine. So these are best practices that you can learn. But right now, something like 78% of employees see the future about being AI and they know it's going to impact their jobs and they want training. And only 31% say they're getting the training that they need. It's a huge gap and a disconnect. Organizations are just not investing in the training that people would need in order to be successful with AI.
Fascinating, Charlene. I'm so glad we had to have you back on because I had to have a chance to talk to you. It's not fair. It wasn't fair that only Tim got to do it. So that was absolutely scintillating. conversation. Where can people find you and your work?
You can find me at my website, charleneli.com. This is my name. I am also very active on LinkedIn. It's a great place to connect with me. So hope to connect with many of you. Please write me. I tell people, connect with me, write me. I read everything, and almost nobody does.
I will.
So, but I'm very sincere about this. This is
I'll write to you tomorrow. Okay.
great.
And I hear you're in you're in the UK presently, where I am, right?
I am. I'm right in the middle of London right now.
Yeah, well, I'm in London too, so yeah. So nice to connect on this in the same city, even if virtually, and a pleasure to meet and talk to you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Charlene. Take care.
To make sure that you never miss an episode, subscribe to the show in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcast player. And if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, make sure to leave a rating of the show. Just tap the number of stars you think the podcast deserves. If you'd like to learn more about how NextThink can help you improve your digital employee experience, head over to nextthink.com. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time.